Welcome to the last video in this series on success in 20 days, how to become successful, how to achieve your goals. This video is the last one and it's about finishing strong, and we're gonna finish strong in this series. Most people, what ends up happening is they go 90% of the way. They go 3 feet from gold, another concept we've been talking about in these videos, and they don't crush it. They don't crush it at the end. They don't make it to the end. They die out when they can see the finish line, and part of it is because they can see the finish line, right? Have you ever noticed, have you ever gone for a run and gotten to the point where you can see the end and suddenly you're more tired? Now you may actually go faster, you may actually go speed up on your last mile, but you're gonna feel more tired. You're gonna feel like giving up more, okay? And that's what happens a lot of times in a lot of endeavors that you might pursue. You're gonna find that as you get close to the end, okay, when you can see the finish line, when the end is in sight, that's when you tend to feel more tired. You tend to give up, and it's ridiculous. It's a self-destructive behavior that a lot of us have. And so that's why it's so important to think about finishing strong, right? To make that a principle that you have in your life, is this idea that you're going to finish strong. By finishing strong, you complete the actual thing, right? So a good story from history, the story of Odysseus, right? In the Odyssey, he basically, what ended up happening was, in the Iliad, you hear about the fight in Troy, right, where they're fighting in Troy, and Odysseus is one of the commanders, okay? And what he does is, after the fight in Troy and they've had the success and they've basically overtaken Troy, he's going on his way home, right? They've been gone at war for 10 years, okay? He's left his wife and his young son behind, and he's on his way back, and he's going through all these trials and tribulations, and he goes to these different islands, and at one point he gets a bag with all the winds, right, or with the north wind captured, okay, and he's on his way home, and he's almost there after all of this stuff, and they're about to reach back to where it's Ithaca, okay? Ithaca is where he's from, and he falls asleep, okay, and his men, they wonder what's in the bag, and they basically, they think maybe it's some gold that he's holding out on. So they open up this bag, and it's got the north wind in there, and it blows them all the way back, all the way that they came, and he basically has to start the journey over again. What happened, right, and Odysseus blamed himself, is he fell asleep at the end. All he had to do was be watchful and mindful and just stay awake for a little bit longer, and just stay on guard for a little bit longer, and he would have made it back home, and he would have saved himself a huge amount of trial and hardship that happened after that. Because believe me, after that, what ended up happening was he basically ended up losing all of his men. He blinded the Cyclops. He ended up having his whole ship destroyed, ended up on this island with Calypso, who kept him there for like 10 years, and then he had to fight his way back. It was a big pain in the ass, believe me, and it was because of this mistake, right? So what ends up happening a lot of times in life is that we end up dying out at the end. We when we're getting close to victory, we basically put our guard down, we let our guard down, and we end up falling short, right? What we do is we take something that should be a win and we convert it into a loss, and it's horrible because we take it for granted that it's going to be a win. What we have to do is we have to tell ourselves that when we're getting close, that's when we push even harder. That's when we make sure that we're going to finish strong, right? Because that's the moment where we let our guard down, because we think we're going to cruise to the finish line, just like Odysseus did, and then we end up getting a rude awakening, right? So, another famous story throughout history is that of the tortoise and the hare, and that's exactly what's going on here, right? If you think about it, the hare, right, he runs his race. He's so confident in his race that he runs, and then he stops and he takes a nap, okay? While the tortoise is just going, and the tortoise ends up passing him and winning the race because the hare took a nap. Now, normally you get a different moral from that story, but in my case, what I get from that story is that he didn't finish strong. He started strong and he ran super fast, but then he took a nap and wasted his time because he was too confident in the fact that he thought that he was so far ahead that he was going to win. And so that's the thing. It's like you have to realize that and a lot of times, whatever you're trying to achieve, whatever success or goal you're trying to achieve in life, that it's not guaranteed until you have the fucking medal in your hand. Okay, the race is not over. It's not over. Okay, until you've gotten the paycheck, it's not done. It's not paid. You know what I mean? You got to have the money in hand. You got to have the medal in hand before you consider it done. You have to complete things. You have to finish them all the way through. And again, what I talked about in a lot of this series was this idea that it's going to be harder than you think. It's going to take longer than you think. And so you can't be like, okay, well, I must be at the end. You have to expect that it's going to be longer, that it's going to be harder. You have to be prepared to be able to go an extra 2 miles, to be able to go an extra 3 miles. So when I'm training, when I'm preparing for things, I often train harder than that's required. I often do more than that's required, which we talked about in the last video, okay? And I imagine that things are going to be much more difficult so that I'm prepared and so that I can finish strong. So that when I get to that finish line, I'm blowing past it. I'm really pushing it hard. You want to prepare, you want to train yourself, and you want to develop this habit, okay? You want to develop this principle that when you do something, you're not just going to get it. You're just not going to just get it done. You're not going to just cross the finish line. You're going to push hard at the end. You're going to finish strong in everything that you do, okay? So whether that be writing, whether that be working at your job, whether that be creating your business or finishing your workday or shooting videos like I'm shooting, you're going to finish strong. You're going to come in, you're going to finish the thing strong. We're finishing the series strong. I'm not laying on the floor and saying, oh my gosh, this series is over. I'm giving you all that I got still because I want to finish this strong. I want this to be something that is going to be meaningful and impactful to you and change your life, really. It's going to take more than one time in order for it to set in. So bookmark it. Put it on your calendar. Say, in another month, I'm gonna go through this again, or another 2 months, or maybe once a quarter, until you get this down and get these concepts down. But these are the things that will change your life. If you figure this out, if you start doing this stuff, honestly, this is really gonna have a huge impact on your life. I'll talk to you next time. Take care.